Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Live with Kevin. It's Monday at noon. And so that means it's time for Live with Kevin. And welcome to a very special episode, actually. You know, as leaders, we have a responsibility to lead our teams and to lead ourselves. But beyond that, we have a responsibility to leave the world a better place. And as leaders, we're in a unique situation to do exactly that. We're given opportunities to learn and grow. We're given a chance to become more self-aware, and we're often given tools and access and information that can help us help others. And our guest today is doing exactly that. She's going to challenge us to do that as well. And today's episode is really meant to challenge all of us. And our guest is going to help us. I'm going to introduce you to her. There she is. Miss Judith has joined us. We're glad she's here. Let me tell you a little bit about Judith Halbreich right now. She is the founder of the Home of Champions. She is a youth activist and social worker who has had a successful executive career in social services, mental health, and clinical research, serving on many boards of directors. Ms. Halbreich created one of the first New York City foster care programs for infants suffering from AIDS, in addition to creating an award-winning independent living program for youth aging out of the foster care system. Her passion is to bring to fruition the Home of Champions leadership program, which will inspire youth to become champions of their best selves. And I think, honestly, today is going to inspire us as well. Judith, welcome.
Thank you. So good to be here.
And we learned, well, hello, Catherine. Greetings from Northern California. That's a great idea, by the way. Those of you that are here, please just tell us where you're from. Yeah, we've got Dan is in Dayton, Ohio. So just tell us where you're from. We're glad to have you weigh in and tell us that. And that gets you used to commenting and asking questions as we go. So, Judith, I'm so glad that you're here. We learned before we went live that we have something in common, that we both went to school in the state of Indiana, that your mother sent you here to be safe. And yes. I went to Purdue because I wanted to go to Purdue. So, you know, no one wakes up, well, probably few people wake up and say, hey, I'm going to be in social services, mental health, and doing clinical research for my life. You don't wake up when you're 10 and decide that's what you want to do. Probably. So just tell us a little bit about sort of the journey that got you to this, and then that'll lead us in to talk a little bit about the Home of Champions. But what's sort of your path? What led you to doing the work you're doing now, Judith?
Well, actually, in Indiana in college, I was focused on theater and art. And then one day, the beginning of my junior year, I said, no, I'm going to do social work, and I'm going to give back to the community that way, because I had a grandfather that took care of all the people in the community, and so did my grandmother, and so did my mother. So I did. I woke up and said, that's the path I'm going to take. And since then, I've been focusing, and I've been an advocate for children, basically in New York State.
Well, I'm glad you say New York State, because I assumed that you were outside of New York City right now, but you're actually in Buffalo
yes.
right now. And thankfully for you, you don't have as much snow as they probably are getting in the city today, which is unusual. Usually Buffalo get way more snow than the city. Right? So tell us about, I've said it like 3 times now, tell us about the Home of Champions. What's the idea? What's the story behind the Home of Champions?
So as working in New York City, as graduating from college and graduate school, and working as a caseworker, and then developing some programming for adolescents, and then becoming an executive director of a New York City foster care adoption agency, I noticed that when we take adolescents away to retreats or weekends and focus on them, on becoming, on their self-esteem, on their confidence, I noticed a change in them. And this was a program that was implemented for about a 2-year period, and staff and I would do this, develop them. Now, several years later, a few of those kids came back and said, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be a director of a Bronx rehab center. So it was very fortunate that I had the experience of those youth coming back as adults saying, it changed me. So mentorship and really caring for them outside of the system worked.
Well, so, and I would tell everyone that's with us here live, or whether you're watching later. And by the way, if you're watching later, you can still comment. We'd love to have you comment. Just so you all know, Judith and I met about 7 minutes before we went live. So we don't know a lot. I don't know a lot about the story that she's telling us. But here's Judith, what went through my mind as you were telling that story about those retreats and how those retreats were having an impact on young adults.
Yes.
And that is that all those same things could be said, not to minimize your point, all those same things could be said for adults, right? Get us in a supportive place, get us away from everything else, give us a chance to have resources and learning and experiences together can have a huge impact. So I really love that idea. And again, the overriding theme for everyone who's watching is that I definitely want you to hear what Judith is talking about and sharing about, but I want you to be thinking about, how do I apply this myself? Maybe you've not thought about disadvantaged youth. Maybe you've not thought about people aging out of foster care. What I'm challenging you all to think about as you're learning from Judith is, what can we be doing as leaders to make the world around us a better place? And Judith is certainly an example of that. So Judith, so you had this epiphany when people were coming back and saying, hey, these retreats were a big part of my, they were pivotal for me.
Yes.
So that led you to saying, we've got to do more than just some retreats. So tell us a little bit more about the Home Champions.
So there's probably nothing like this particular organization because we screen for leadership. So the Home of Champions is located, and I was very lucky to get the state of Floyd Patterson and the training camp of Muhammad Ali and Ingemar Johansson. And Muhammad Ali said, champions aren't created in gyms. Champions have a deep desire that's within them, and they have the will and the skill to be leaders. Most importantly, they have to have the will. Otherwise, you can't be the champion, you can't be the leader. It's that determination that Floyd Patterson said, that when you get knocked down, you get back up. And these kids many of them have the will because they have resiliency. So going from home to home, not having a stable home, right? But some of them have that internal determination and will and the skill, because many of them are so bright. So, and the will to be a leader in the community, to be an advocate, to do well in their job. So I found that screening kids and youth for leaders is important. And all the agencies that I work with in New York City, they actually refer those students. Home of Champions is a phenomenal historical sanctuary because the boxing ring is there, the essence is there. And look at Patterson and look at Muhammad Ali. They did not have great time growing up, especially Patterson.
Yeah, they didn't have a model kidhood. We'll just leave it at that.
Exactly.
Right? So you've got this phenomenal site, and so there's tremendous aura and as you said, around all of that. So, and you're screening for kids to be there based on leadership. So when they arrive, what's happening? What's going on when they're there?
Well, so we screen them, they're referred, and we've had what we call champion workshops, and they have to participate before entering the program. Right now, we don't have a residential program at all because of COVID. But and then we do have a summit that's online in February. In February and March and April, we're going to be having the leadership programming for them. So once they arrive there, they participate in a champion curriculum. So what does that mean? Well, we've invited Tracy Patterson, who's the adopted son and world champion boxer, who actually not only beginning tells the kids, you have to have the discipline to go on. And that also means being athletic. So basically we go through that. We go through independent living skills because many of the kids don't know how to live outside of a system. They don't know how to live independently. So there's a curriculum that focuses on that. There's a curriculum that focuses on the jobs for the next decade. Many of them don't know the new careers that are coming up. But more importantly, what is it that they're trying to do is the question. And what is it that we need to do to help them? That's why the screening process is important. So there's a whole...
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. So there's a whole curriculum around that. So it's a three-prong. It's not only independent living skills, but it's an access to opportunities, to resources, and entrepreneur. There's an entrepreneurship arm to it.
So I'm certainly, we don't know who all is watching us right now. Some people might be very aware. I can tell you that I am not, or was not, until I started preparing for our conversation, all that aware or thought very much about, quite honestly, what happened to kids after they age out of the foster care system. So tell us, this is a chance to sort of educate those of us that haven't a clue. So tell us a little bit about the need. Tell us just a little bit about what happens, because I'm going to guess to all of you that this need is everywhere, not just in New York. I'm not guessing about that. I know that. But I'm also guessing that once you understand this, there may be ways in your local communities that you can tap in. So tell us about the need that these kids have at this critical juncture in their life.
Yes, and those are excellent questions. First of all, they're the forgotten student and the forgotten youth before COVID. So the state and the regulations say that kids must be discharged in some states at 18 years old, others at 21. But this doesn't work because can you imagine not having the support, you and I, Kevin, when we grew up, right, to go on, right? If we didn't have the support, it may be mediocre. We couldn't, we had some career, but it was mediocre. But for foster care youth, it's disastrous. They are discharged at age 21, and they are left, many of them, there are about 400,000 kids in the foster care system. 26,000 are discharged every year. 1 out of 4 of those kids become homeless. 1 out of 4, 2 years after being discharged, are incarcerated. And after 2 years of discharge, many of the gals get pregnant, become homeless, are dependent. So my take is that these kids need to remain in foster care until age 26 to learn independent living skills so they can manage and they can have and be employed. So it is disastrous for them right now. Many of them that are being discharged, they don't, and especially during COVID, they don't finish high school and they're not finishing college. So 3% of those kids that I just mentioned, 26% that are discharged, 3% of them get into college. I don't know how many really graduate. I think it's probably less than that.
So you've mentioned like 3 times in the last couple of minutes the word pandemic or COVID. So how has the events of the last year changed this situation? We hear on the news every day about how things are changing because of COVID. And even today, people can't go get their vaccination shots because of the snow in the Northeast. So, but my question would be this: how has the pandemic impacted the situation that you're just describing to us?
Again, that's an excellent question. And California came out with a study. I don't know, probably New York did, but I haven't seen it. And I mentioned, because of the pandemic, they did a study, 34 agencies serving 1,700 youth and responded to the study. 74% said that they served foster care youth who stopped participating in high school during the pandemic or college classes because of the pandemic. 65% of agencies said that who they serve youth need technology support, such as a laptop, such as tutoring. But I find that they need a mentor. I mean, I know those that have left the system, where are they? And I'm not, where are they? Has anybody reported on disconnected or disadvantaged youth? Where are they? Where are they? They're suffering. There's loneliness, there's depression, the suicide rates are up. But I want to know, where are they? Did anybody keep tabs on them?
So those are questions that are worth asking, but not that we can solve today. My question to you would be, and you've talked about this, you've talked about independent living skills and some of those things, but I want to go back to this idea of mentoring and what you're trying to do in some of your programming. And everybody, we are talking to Judith Halbreich, and she is a social work advocate for disadvantaged youth, specifically those coming out of the foster care system, if you're just joining us. So my question would then be, what are the ways that we could help as leaders? Because you mentioned mentoring as a key here. So what advice would you give to us wherever we are? If this is speaking to us, what's your advice about this for us?
First of all, I think philosophically and being in this business a long time, I think, first of all, the government and the leaders need to get together and figure out how to formulate some kind of program where they know where these kids are, right? And then figure out a system to locate them and then to serve them. Just like COVID, we can't get vaccinations, not all of us. So think about, I would like to have a think tank and get leaders in the community and come up with a consortium of leaders that could figure out this serious problem, to locate and to serve them. So what leaders can do in their community is to contact foster care adoption agencies, contact agencies that serve kids, and sign up to be a mentor.
So it's fair to say then that in many communities there are programs for us if this is where we want to serve, where we could be mentors to kids at various ages, but certainly as they're aging out of foster care. Correct?
Yes. Correct.
Okay, cool. And so I'm looking back to some of the folks here, whether we're in Ohio, or we're in Michigan, we're in South Carolina, we're in Quebec, Northern California, Indianapolis, wherever, that you're saying give us specifically again a way, a place that we might go. What would you Google if you were in a random city?
I would
to find out how you could help.
Yeah, first of all, as leaders, I would find out the foster care adoption agencies in your community, and then maybe be on a board of directors. The second option would be find out what kind of programming they have to mentor. The Boys and Girls Club, they have people in the community that mentor. But this is very, very different. One of our advisors at Home of Champions used to, and she probably still continues, to mentor foster care youth. And one of her foster care youth is now on our advisory board. She's written 4 books. You don't give them money. You're there for them. When they need you and they call you with a problem, you're there. It's as simple as that. They don't have to come and live with you. You don't have to give them money, but you have to have a sincere desire to be there for them, to be their support.
And it's that exact point, actually. Judith doesn't even really know this, but it's that exact point, which is why when her team reached out to us about being on, that I said, let's do this, or Lisa and I decided to do this because I felt like, first of all, as was mentioned by someone a minute ago, it's good to see the topic being discussed, and I think a lot of us aren't really all that aware. So raising awareness is one thing, but again, we're not all in New York. We're not all down the street in New Paltz from the Home of Champions. And there's the website there if you want to learn more about what Judith and her team are doing. But all of us are in a situation as leaders where we're likely in a position based on our experience, our knowledge, where we could be a mentor, or we could recommend others to do that, or we can at least now be aware of this. And the thing is, we can't act if we don't know. So Judith, before we start to wrap up, are there any other specific things that you'd like us to know or that you'd want to share with everyone who's watching and listening?
Just on my own experience being a leader is that there comes a time in your life, and as an executive director and on boards, and it's important to give back. It's to give back what you know and who you are. That's all I have to say. It's very, very important to do that because these kids need us. And not only that, a lot of these youth have that potential. And you can look at the Foster to Famous. You could just Google them. And they had one person that mentored them, not necessarily a mother or father, but the Foster to Famous had one person in their life that took the time to reach out and care.
I think one of the things that this conversation makes me reflect on is how blessed that I was to have. Obviously, I certainly know that I was blessed to have parents and to have great parents and all those things. But when we stop and think about the reinforcement and the encouragement and the support system that many of us, I'll just say, maybe at some level took for granted. And so, Judith, in this conversation, I think you've helped us maybe feel a little more grateful for our situations. But as you said, when we're willing to reach out and help, when we're willing to offer a hand, when we're willing to use what we've been given as a lifeline to others, then we can truly make a difference. And that, to me, more than position, is what being a leader is all about. And so, Judith, thank you so much for being here. It was an absolute pleasure to have you. And I'm going to put the website up again. It's Home of Champions, homeofchampionsny.org. You can go there to learn a lot more, see what they're up to. I'm sure she'd accept a donation from you. I'm pretty confident that she would. And so I appreciate so much that, Judith, that you were with us today.
Thank you so much.
Our show today was brought to you by our new book, The Long Distance Leader. You see it up there in the top corner. Maybe you can't read it, but it's right there, The Long Distance Teammate. If you work remotely, want to be more effective, more productive, more engaged, more connected, this book will help you get there. You can learn more by going to longdistanceteammate.com. I think I said Long Distance Leader. That's the last book. But today we're talking about The Long Distance Teammate, longdistanceteammate.com. We got a lot of people saying thank you. I'll just put those up here real quick. quick. Mr. Patrick Bird says thank you. Ms. Charlotte says thank you as well. And thank you, Judith, again for being here. And again, everybody, it's Monday, and at noon Eastern, I'm going to be here. So wherever you're watching, please come back next week for another Live with Kevin. We'll see you then. Judith, thank you for being here. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.